This is the Week in Review for thetrumpet.com, Friday, January 20th, 2012. The European Union is once again sharply criticizing Israel. An internal EU report called Area C and Palestinian State Building has been leaked to the media. Area C is one of the West Bank's 3 sectors, and the Oslo Accords give Israel full control over the area. The report criticizes Israel's policies in the West Bank and says that it is undermining the drive for Palestinian statehood. The report also says that the EU will support building, infrastructure, and other projects in Area C and implies that it will do so regardless of Israel's input. Israeli diplomats said that the EU sought no input from the Israeli government in making the report on Area C. This report is just the latest example of Europe's criticism of Israel. Watch for the Europeans' interest in this area to intensify in the near future until they begin to intervene in a much more direct way. Mohamed El Baradei surprised Egyptians last Saturday and announced that he will not run for president. El Baradei is the former head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, where he protected Iran's nuclear weapons program instead of exposing it. Upon returning to Egypt, El Baradei became a leader in the national revolution a year ago. He was considered to be a contender for the presidency, but said that he will not run because the country's current military leadership is not democratic enough. However, the real motive behind El Baradei's withdrawal may be much more self-serving. Egyptian sources say that he simply conceded defeat to the even more radical Islamists, who are achieving an overwhelming victory in parliamentary elections. Last Friday, Standard & Poor's credit ratings agency downgraded 9 eurozone nations. The euro then fell to its lowest level against the dollar since 2010. France and Austria lost their AAA ratings, and Portugal and Cyprus were downgraded to junk status. At the bottom of the heap, Greece is under enormous pressure. Talks regarding its next stage of bailout cash have broken down. One condition for receiving the money is the gigantic task of convincing its creditors to forgive some of its debt. This has caused a crisis that could lead to another 2008-style financial cataclysm. If that wasn't enough, the European Central Bank and the International Monetary Fund are not convinced that Greece has the ability or the will to make the necessary cutbacks and may not grant it more money. The eurozone is still a long way from solving its financial problems. It is ripe for Germany and a German strongman to take the lead. "2011 saw China increase its military cooperation with foreign forces. China Daily reported on Tuesday that senior officers from the Chinese military visited 14 neighboring countries last year. China Daily also highlighted 8 joint military exercises Beijing conducted in 2011. The joint drills included anti-terrorist exercises with Pakistan, special forces training with Indonesia, and paratrooper training with Belarus. It looks like 2012 will be another active year for the People's Liberation Army. In June, it will head to Tajikistan for war exercises with Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. People in Somalia are experiencing a terrible food crisis. The famine was officially declared 6 months ago, and the United Nations says tens of thousands will probably starve by the time it ends. The country is experiencing a 2-year drought, but the dire lack of food is also man-made. Radical Islamist militias are perpetrating violence and have cut off emergency food delivery to an estimated 240,000 Somalis. Bible prophecy predicts an increase in famines as one sign of Jesus Christ's imminent return. Somali instability may also spill over into Ethiopia, which is prophesied to fall to radical Islam. Venezuelan bishops are becoming active politically. This week, Venezuela's Conference of Roman Catholic Bishops released a pastoral letter giving their perspective on national politics. It focused on unity and national reconciliation among Venezuelans and the participation of all citizens. Dictator Hugo Chavez has cancer and may only have a year or so to live. Meanwhile, presidential elections are coming up next October. Chavez and the Catholic bishops have had a rocky history. It may be that the Catholics see now as the best time to push for more influence in Venezuela. Continue to watch the Roman Catholic Church increase its political power in countries around the world. Three beheadings in the United States over the past year are the work of Mexican drug cartels. That is what Phil Jordan, a former Drug Enforcement Agency supervisor, said in a statement this week. 2 victims were found in Arizona and 1 in Oklahoma, 600 miles from the Mexican border. The person murdered in Oklahoma had been a human trafficking victim, and she was decapitated in order to terrorize other victims. It is known that one of the men beheaded in Arizona was murdered by cartel killers who traveled to his apartment from Mexico. The other victim was also mutilated, and all 3 gruesome murders were done in such a way as to send a message: don't cross the cartels. Jordan said, "This is one of the ways they do it in Mexico, Colombia, and other places. The violence and carnage wrought by America's insatiable lust for drugs is finally beginning to cross the border." That is the Trumpet.com Week in Review.